Hello, welcome to another episode of What's Up, Missoula, where MCAT interviews representatives from nonprofit organizations. And with us today, we have the Friendship Force of Missoula, and we have 4 members with us. And over there on the left, we have Fred Fry. He has just gotten back from Japan. This group travels all over the world. Glenn Wheeler is the treasurer, and he's been to Australia. He's going to talk to us about that a little bit. And then we have Doug McClellan. He is the president of the Friendship Force. And Jane Rechtenwald, she is the exchange director, and also she writes the newsletter for the group. And she's been to New Zealand. Let's talk about what this group does. First of all, Fred, we were talking earlier and about how the group was formulated, and I guess actually I should be talking to Doug about that. Sorry, the president. And you were saying that the Carters were one of the people that started this, Jimmy Carter in Atlanta, but there were other people involved too. Why did they start this organization?
Well, Wayne Smith was actually the one that originated, and he was a friend of the Carters. And they started in the late 70s, and the reason was to promote world friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And Chip Carter was actually the international president for a period of years.
And so this is a nationwide organization?
Or international.
Oh, it's international.
There's 270 clubs worldwide.
Oh, and so it's called Friendship Force all over the world.
Right.
Okay. And what you do essentially is exchange places to stay.
Yeah, those clubs, the 270 clubs, mm-hmm. You'll have what we call ambassadors, and they will go to another club someplace in the world. Mm-hmm. And our particular club typically has one incoming exchange. For instance, this coming year, it'll be from New Zealand, and Jane is the exchange director for that exchange. That'll be in October.
Okay.
This past year, we had a group from the Sunshine Coast Club in Australia came in September for a week.
All right.
And this coming fall, hopefully we'll have an outgoing exchange to Australia again. Now, and Glenn is the exchange director for that trip, and I believe that'll be 2 weeks.
Okay, let's talk about what we mean by these exchanges. So Jane, when you organize people to come here.
Actually, I don't organize it, but the international organization gets requests from clubs all over the world.
Is that in Atlanta?
In Atlanta.
Okay.
Of what part of the world they'd like to visit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a list last year and said that there was a group from New Zealand that would like to visit Missoula. So Doug asked me if I'd be the exchange director for that. So I will organize that group coming to Australia, to Missoula from New Zealand. They'll go to Toronto first, then Missoula, and then they'll go to the Napa Valley in California before they head back to New Zealand.
And so that's a week-long trip for them?
It'll be 3 weeks or maybe more, but they'll be in Missoula for a week. So we've just had our first organizing committee, and people that are willing to help plan the activities met last week, and we kind of sketched out some of the things that we'd like to do with the New Zealand group, and then we'll email that back to the New Zealand exchange director, and he'll talk with his club members and see if our activities sound like what they'd like to do. Last year when the Australians came, they said even though they knew that Glacier Park was quite a ways from Missoula, they really wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
when these groups come, how many people show up?
Last year there were 21 from Australia, and it looks like there'll be maybe a dozen from New Zealand.
And where will they stay when they're here?
Members of our club will be hosts, and the host members fill out a form and say what they like to do. The guests, the ambassadors that Doug mentioned, coming in will make a list of things they like to do, like bird watching or art galleries or hikes, and then we try to match the guests with the host activities.
So it's not like there's a group here in Missoula that's going to go and reciprocate to their country.
No.
Oh, okay. So when you say exchange, you're basically exchanging part of the exchange for the worldwide organization. It's just whatever people want to do. If they want to end up in Missoula, you accommodate them.
No,
and
that's right.
And how many groups a year come to Missoula through the exchange?
One group would come into Missoula, and we would have one outgoing trip to someplace else in the world.
Okay, and so like you were telling me that you wanted to go somewhere special, and that was, where was that you
Well, I
went?
went to Australia last year,
Australia.
and our club didn't go to Australia,
Mhm.
but the group from Billings was going. So
Okay.
I asked if I could join that group, and met them in Denver, and off we went to Australia. And then I saw on the international website that there was a group going to the Fraser Valley, east of Vancouver in Canada. And that group was from Phoenix, or Albuquerque, I guess. So they had room for extra people, and a couple of us joined them in the Fraser Valley for a week.
Okay, and so basically what happens here is that if you have about, how many members do you have right now, did you say?
Is it about?
Around 90.
around
Okay, there's 90 members in Missoula. People can join your organization. Doesn't cost very much to join. You have meetings about once a month. You meet for breakfast and kind of have a good time and talk about things and make presentations. We talked about that earlier. But anyway, what happens is that if you're a member of the Friendship Force Missoula, you can travel anywhere around the world and stay at a host home for as little as short as a week and sometimes longer. Okay, and so the philosophy behind it is to just promote friendship between countries.
Between
Okay.
people.
All right.
Plus, as I mentioned, the other three reasons that are at least practical reasons. One is a lot less expensive because you're staying in somebody's home.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, when you go on an exchange, the hosts know what to do in that area so that you don't have to wonder what to do. They'll have it all planned for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, there is a lot of the members are older
Mhm.
and have potential health problems. And so you have kind of a herd, take care of each other
Yeah,
when you're
excellent.
traveling.
Yes, okay. And so, as far as the responsibilities of being a member of the organization, you don't necessarily have to have a home for people to stay in. And so you can be a host. Has anyone here been a host?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, have you all been hosts?
I have not.
I have
Okay, all right. So the host responsibilities are, Jane, what are those?
Generally, the host would have a separate bedroom. Now, I've talked to people that have traveled to Russia, and the host there moved out of their bedroom and slept in the living room and gave the guests their bedroom.
Okay, and so then you can be a day host also,
Then
which
you-
is,
Then you would just join a group and take one of the day trips, and that would leave the overnight host free to do something else that
so
day.
if someone doesn't have room in their home for people to stay in their home, and it's usually couples or
Couples and
singles.
singles, and sometimes children.
Sometimes family,
Mhm.
okay. And any age, you can be in your 20s and join the organization
Mhm.
and have a safe place to stay, okay? All right, and so we have some travelers with us. Fred, you went to Japan.
I did.
And how long have you been a member of the organization?
I just joined about a year ago. Ran into a friend at the grocery store, and she was telling me about all these wonderful trips she'd been taking, and you got to tell me more. And so I joined up, and then just shortly later, she became the outgoing director for Japan, and said, "Fred, you got to go." So
Wow.
we made it happen.
Okay, and so how, as far as outgoing director for Japan, that's because a group of people from Missoula went to Japan? Is that what happened?
There was 8 of us from Missoula, and
Okay.
actually we had room in the group, so a couple from Ontario, Canada joined us as well. But
Okay.
then her job was to organize our end of everything, and she helped pull together transportation and checking out all the prices and coordinating with the incoming director. So she had quite a job to do herself.
And so you stayed with a family for 1 week. You were telling me that you also then extended your stay and you stayed in a motel or something, or after that?
The first week we did stay with the families. We were met
Uh-huh.
in Nagoya by all the hosts,
Uh-huh.
and they then took us to our homes that evening. Yeah, I was pretty apprehensive about the whole thing actually, and the difference in culture and language and everything else. But my host actually emailed me and called me, and he said, "Fred-san, everything is going to be wonderful. Everything's taken care of. You don't have to worry about anything. Don't worry about the language, nothing." And he was absolutely true. It was a remarkable trip.
And then after that, you went somewhere else because you wanted to stay longer, so you just stayed at a different place.
Right, we felt that to travel that far for 1 week, so we hooked up with a travel agency or a tour company, and every day they would meet us in a different town. They picked us up in Nagoya, and then each day we changed, went to Hakone and a few other places, and there was somebody there to help guide us around. Also what happened is one of the members of the Tokyo Club, on their own expense, joined us for 3 days that second week because she wanted to know more about Missoula and Montana and learn about us. And so at her own expense, she just traveled right along with us and then met us again the last day in Tokyo.
So she was also like a tour guide for you too, probably.
An unofficial, unpaid, had her own expense tour guide.
So from the time that you knew you wanted to go to Japan and you actually left, how long a period was that? Like a couple of months, or?
We were working on it. Well, they were working on it probably January, February, starting to connect up with the directors and sharing information back and forth, and then gradually starting to pull things together.
Right.
Same thing's going on now with the outgoing. Is Glenn's trying to find out who's interested, and he's trying to gather all those expenses and kind of guide us along.
All right. So tell me some more about that. Glenn, what are you organizing right now?
We are organizing an exchange to Australia.
Okay, that's
we have
what those
in front of
little
us
boats are for.
Australia animals.
And when are you going to go to Australia?
We're going in September. Actually, right now the plans are to leave Missoula August the 28th and go to South Sydney, to Sydney, Australia. We'll spend a week there, and then we'll fly into Melbourne from Sydney, and then take ground transportation from Melbourne over to Mount Gambier and spend the second week with the host club in Mount Gambier.
Wow, wonderful. And so what are these little dolls? I know Jane was telling me that one in the center that has that hat with those things hanging down, that's to keep away the mosquitoes?
They're little
And the sun, maybe.
Oh.
Protection.
Uh-huh.
So we have Crocodile Dundee, and then we have these three animals as well.
Koalas. That's great. And so have you ever been to Australia before?
I have not. This will be a first for me.
That's exciting.
It is very
All right.
exciting.
And so how long have you been a member?
2 years. Doug drafted me
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. We're both in the same organization, and he asked me to join from there. And as soon as I joined, he asked me to be treasurer. So
Oh, so you're the treasurer, that's right. And so when you, since you've joined up, what are the different things that you have done? You've become the treasurer, but besides that, have you traveled anywhere else?
I have not traveled with the organization anywhere, no. I did participate in the incoming from Australia last summer.
Okay. And so how did you participate with them?
I went to some of the day tour outings.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Okay, and so Jane, you were going to add something.
Well, I was going to say, when I went to Australia, of course, they speak English, at least close to our language.
With
but
a slight accent.
And the accent was funny. The first night I got there, I said to my host, what kind of a place are we going for dinner? You know, what should I wear? And she said, oh, it's very casual. We're going to a hole. I said, a hole? She said, yes, a hole. I said, a hole? H-A-H-O-L-E, hole? She said, a hole, H-A-L-L.
Oh.
So it was a hall, you know. But I said, oh, I thought maybe it was a cave. And, you know, when you go to a foreign country and you're staying with families, you don't really know exactly what it's going to be. So even a country where they speak English, you can have some funny misinterpretations of the language. And I thought, what a nice way to go to a new country and have a funny little experience like that to happen the first day. And we both laughed about it during the week.
All right, and you retain these friendships with these people too?
Yes, they've had these horrible fires in Australia, and it's been very nice to get emails from them with the local information about those fires, and it does really bring people together from around the world. I think the Carter's idea of friends among people might help make friends among countries.
And now, speaking of the Carters, Doug, have you met the Carters by any chance?
No.
Run into them in your travels?
No.
Have you gone anywhere? Have you been traveling
Yeah,
with the group?
my wife and I did go with our club to Costa Rica about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And as Fred alluded to, you're a little bit apprehensive, because I remember it didn't bother me because we had hosted many other groups from Colombia. But as we were about to land in San Jose, I looked down at all the lights and thought, gee, we're going to be staying at a house there. What if they don't have indoor plumbing? Well, yeah, everything, of course, worked out fine. In fact, we stayed in their daughter's room, and she moved into this other little room. But it was they're very accommodating, and it's a great experience.
And so do you speak Spanish? How did you do down there?
Yes, that was my wife's first language, and I have been working on Spanish, and it's better now than it was then, but that's another aspect if you are interested in languages, especially Spanish. Because there are quite a few clubs in Spanish-speaking countries.
So how many places are there to go in a year that, let's say I joined and I'm thinking, I really would like to go to Italy. Do you think that's a possibility within the next year or two that the
I
organization
think
will
the
have?
International has a website where they list trips that you can take, and if they're not filled up, which they often are not, then you can, as Jane did, and we had the two people from Ontario that went to Japan. In fact, Glenn's going to advertise the trip to Australia on that national website to try to get some more ambassadors to go with our club.
Excellent.
But if you look on that, there's a list of a lot of trips and that you can very often get included in.
And
So
so
the chances would be excellent if you want to go to Italy.
that's fantastic.
Maybe not with the local club, but
No.
attached to another group.
Well, what a safe way to travel.
Yes.
And to know that you're going to be taken care of and just not thrown out there. And yet not be on some crazy tour that's going from one place to another and you're like, oh, what about that place? Yeah, that's great.
But you do have to be adventurous and accept whatever the living situation is and
Yeah.
whatever the food is and just smile and go to the hole if that's where the meeting's going to be.
That's great. So, and if you don't speak Italian or whatever, you pretty much, it's okay. It's
It's
not a
okay.
requirement, yeah.
You'd be no worse off than going to Italy on your own.
Well, it sounds like it actually would be much better.
Be much
because
better,
the-
but from a language standpoint, you'd be no worse than that.
Yeah, excellent.
For instance, Fred went to Japan, and your Japanese was probably rusty, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe 2 words. I was very
Yeah.
fortunate. My host had pretty good command of the English language, and actually,
Yeah.
the incoming director had taught English over there. So, our whole group, we were able to communicate quite well.
All right.
But I've talked to people who've gone to countries where their host didn't speak English at all. And they said it's amazing how you can communicate, even if you don't speak the same language.
Mhm.
And they spent the whole week with that family, and they just felt so close to them by the end of the week, even though they'd never really exchanged words that they understood.
Great. And so if somebody wanted to go somewhere, they can just go to the website, which we're putting up on the screen, and you can call and get information on that. But basically, it's what happens is that you can go there and find out all this information without even joining the group at this point. And then hopefully we have our Missoula audience will come down and join, because you have these meetings all the time and talk about the logistics of everything. But if I just wanted to go to the website, and that is the friendshipforce.org, I could find out all the places that are lined up over the next, couple of years. That's great.
That's the Friendship Force International website.
Right. Okay.
And usually, if you're coming from another city, the exchange director in that city would like to know something about you, so they probably contact the local organization to find out, how active you've been and the kinds of things you're interested in, so that you don't have total strangers joining these trips, that somebody in Friendship Force would know who they were.
Okay, and so if somebody wants to join the Friendship Force in Missoula, you have an application that you fill out? Is that how you do it?
I guess it is a little...
We don't have a formal application.
Formal
Just let
application.
somebody know you want to join and come to a meeting and
Okay.
And give Glenn the check.
give me a check and you're a
That's the
member.
application,
All right.
the check.
Okay.
And the dues are very reasonable.
And so you have your monthly meetings, usually a breakfast meeting, an hour and a half long. And you have people making presentations, usually at the meeting, just informally talking about their trips, or what do they talk about?
Well, we had, the last meeting, we had somebody talk about Aboriginal art in Australia.
Mhm.
And she and her husband had lived in Australia for 5 years, and she teaches art.
Mhm.
So we had a little bit of information about the upcoming Australia trip.
Okay.
And then we have the other meetings, quarterly meetings and an annual meeting, where we might have a longer program.
Mhm.
We had somebody from Australia, Bill
A couple
Borey, came,
meetings ago
Mhm.
talked about
with
living
some
in
nice video of the Australia area. Yeah.
All right. So, and then you have on these, the breakfast meetings are once a month.
That's right.
And anybody could come.
Sure.
Just to kind of test it out. And as you were saying, the membership is very reasonable. It's
Right.
not like it's outrageously priced or anything. And then you have these other meetings 4 times a year, and those are at night?
Mhm.
Usually at night, and oftentimes they're potluck
Mhm.
dinners.
Mhm.
And there's a longer program, usually about some foreign country.
And so, and you usually just arrange these at some restaurant. It's not always at the same place.
The Perkins restaurant is where we have the monthly meetings.
Okay.
And then the months that we don't have the monthly meetings, we have the general meeting. Those are usually at the Welcoma Club
Okay.
on Clark Street, and then people bring a potluck.
All right. And so, what time of the month is it that you have your monthly meetings? Is it always the same day?
It's around the second Tuesday of the month, but sometimes it changes.
Okay, and so we can email, and that's Fred's email address, that dnmcc@montana.com, or call 728-7142. And I'm sorry, that's Doug's address and his email address, and if you want to find out that information. But if people went to the website, thefriendshipforce.org, would they also see information about your group? You said that eventually you're going
Yeah,
to
at this
lock into
point,
that.
we don't have our club on the national or the international
But you will
website,
have,
but
yeah.
we will have.
And so, that's fine. People can look for it.
Right.
Yeah, it will be something that will be showing up.
Actually, the information about our club is there. We just don't have our own website that's connected to the international. But I think that your name is probably on that.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
All
I'm
right.
not sure either.
Okay.
Certainly, if they went to the international website
Yeah,
and communicated with them, they would refer them to somebody here in Missoula. So in that way, they can get to Missoula.
okay. And so, and you're probably listed in the newspaper, or do you have it in the Missoulian or something when your meetings are? Do they still do that at the Missoulian?
From time to time, but it hasn't been very religious as far as having that information.
Well, don't forget to use MCAT, and I'll tell you more about it.
Okay,
And
good.
that is that you can use we do have a community calendar that we
Okay,
show, and
great.
and people should look for that information on our community calendar, which shows up between programs.
Yeah, that would help
and-
a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because one thing we do need is to get some more members and some younger members. The club was very active up until, well, it still is active, but a lot of the members that were the most active back in their 50s and 60s are now 20 years older. And so we need to get some younger people involved, like these 3.
Yeah.
4.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, well, we want to, and also there's some really inexpensive plane flights right now.
Mhm.
So this is kind of a good time to arrange something like that. So,
Yes, the airfare to Australia right now is under $1,000, so.
wonderful, that's round trip,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that's
Mhm.
great. Is that the farthest place to go? Is the other side of the world, right? Or Japan? Japan?
Japan.
Australia is a
far.
little further than
Yes.
Japan, I
Yeah.
think, from here.
How exciting. All right.
Australia is halfway around the world, so it's probably about as far as you can go.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
Are there trips to places like Russia and China?
Yes.
and-
Mhm.
Okay.
Vietnam?
Vietnam? Wonderful. It's just, what about Bali? I want to
Don't
go to
know.
Bali.
Good question. I would go.
Yeah, okay. We'll
Some
have to
countries
start
have
looking.
lots of Friendship Force clubs, and others have very few.
Mhm.
So it just depends on how many clubs there are in the area that you're interested in going to.
Well, I think, Doug, you were saying that if someone wants to sign on and there isn't a place that the Friendship Force is going to, but there are other organizations around the world that you guys are connected up with, is that true? Or was I?
Well, no, I don't think that I What I was probably alluding to is just that you can go with other Friendship
Oh, I
Force
see.
clubs.
It's all Friendship
If they're
Force.
going, for
How many
instance, to
Friendship
Italy.
Force clubs are there?
I think it's 270 worldwide, and there is a slight problem in that a majority of those clubs are in the U.S., New Zealand, or Australia. And of course, we'd like to, people might want to go to Norway or Italy or wherever, but maybe somebody from Norway would like to go to Italy. And so since there are fewer clubs, we end up going to New Zealand or Australia and vice versa more than probably Norway or Italy. But through the international sites, you can still often hook up with some club that is going to one of these other places. So.
Well, it just sounds so exciting. I'm definitely coming to at least one meeting to check it out.
do
It
that.
sounds
Yeah, you ought to do that.
fantastic, and I want to go to Italy and Bali. So I'll be calling you guys.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you.
It was
Thank you.
really very, very good information.
Great.
And anyone out there that wants to travel safely and, have a place to stay and with friendly people who are going to show you around, I mean, how can you pass this up? This is great. So this is the Friendship Force Missoula. And thank you for coming on the program today.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for inviting us.
You bet. All right. See you soon. I'll
Okay.
be there at the meeting.